Welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. Our theme for 2025 is the future of work. Meaning is the new money. In a world shaped by rapid innovation and constant change, the pursuit of purpose and impact has never been more important. I'm Dr. John Dentico, your host, bringing over 30 years of experience in leadership, strategic thinking, and purpose-driven innovation. Here, we tackle the pressing challenges of our time, from the rise of artificial intelligence to the growing need for meaning in the workplace. Together, we'll uncover how leaders can ethically integrate AI to enhance decision-making and keep humanity at the heart of their organizations. Remember, amidst all the technological advancements, in the end, it's always about the people. This podcast is your resource for actionable tools, thought-provoking discussions, and inspiring stories. It's time to go beyond leadership development and focus on leadership impact, creating workplaces where people thrive, innovation flourishes, and meaning truly becomes the new currency. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now, let's throttle up and dive into today's episode. Hello again and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Dr. John Dentico. With me today is Jennifer Einolf, a leadership clarity coach and founder of Bold Whisper, LLC. Jennifer partners with leaders to design the clarity that fuels their visionary leadership, unlocks their creativity, and elevates their critical communication, especially within diverse, distributed teams. With a unique background as a commercial interior designer, serial entrepreneur, and credentialed coach, she seamlessly blends design thinking, ontological coaching, and growth facilitation to help leaders not just develop, but truly transform. As the revolutionary at Ditch the Doom, Jennifer is inviting you to join the revolution by cultivating creativity, accessing courage, and collaborating across communities, even with people you don't like. She believes we can shift from paralyzing doom to invigorating hope. In fact, she's convinced that to survive and thrive on this planet, we must join the Ditch the Doom revolution. I am pleased to have her here with me on the podcast today. Hello, Jennifer. How are you?
Hello, I am fine, and I love the way you say "ditch the doom." That's so good to hear it that way.
I practiced. Yeah. I worked on that a little bit. That's right.
I loved it. All that emphasis. It's good.
Well, Jennifer, I'm adding a little bit more personal touch to my podcast this year. So I want to ask you this question. Tell me a bit about yourself. Where did you grow up, and what in your mind were some of the fundamental influences in your life?
Oh, what a beautiful question. I grew up in a semi-rural corner of Baltimore County. So I grew up just above Baltimore, which meant I grew up with trees and a river that went through the back, and I could also get downtown into all of that wonderful chaos in a half an hour. So I had the best of rural peace and cultural, exciting downtown life. And it was just a great place to grow up. I'm similarly placed here. I live just outside of Richmond. Same thing. I'm on a property with trees and I can get downtown in 20 minutes. And I hadn't really thought about it till this moment. But yeah, same pattern. I want to be able to access all those things. My influences, man, it's such a good question. I think it's really important to remember those people that built who you are. We act like self-made people, and that's the farthest thing from the truth. My father, who passed away when I was 12, was a huge influence. He never met a stranger. He could talk to anyone. Within 2 minutes, he had their life history. And being witness to that as a kid was very influential. Same thing with animals. Animals that didn't like other people would crawl up in his lap and fall asleep. So the St. Francis kind of model. And then my mother, who was widowed at a young age and went on and had a whole second career, she became a cognitive psychology researcher and worked for a high-pressure government agency and taught me that it ain't over till it's over, because she's still kicking and doing all kinds of amazing things, even in her retirement. Those are the up-close influences, but the teachers, the friends, the opportunities, I I participated as a camp counselor in a summer camp. It was a French immersion camp where we spoke French with the kids to try to really give them that conversational French. And the spoiler alert is that I didn't speak French. I was a middle school kid who was pedaling as fast as she could. So those kind of jump in over your head experiences of trying to navigate downtown Montreal with $2 in my pocket to go buy dinner at a deli. Like the jump in. My mom was a big believer in you learn by doing. So lots of those jump in over your head. I've had a very interesting relationship with fear my whole life. I used to think I was fearful. And then I noticed that no, you just feel fear a lot because you're constantly doing scary things. And there's a difference. And understanding that was very influential for me that, yeah, if you're going to be courageous, you're going to feel fear. Okay, got it.
Yeah, and learning to overcome that fear is such a valuable ability. It's just amazing. I know, I'm sitting here thinking, I can think of the first assignment I had as an officer in the United States Navy, and I will tell you, I was scared to death every day. Yeah. But every day you got up and you made it happen. Every day you did what you could do that day to be better than you were yesterday. And eventually you make the breakthrough. You come out on the other side and you're confident. You feel confident about what you're doing and confident in who you are. So I completely understand that. I know that Bold Whisper has a mission statement. Can you tell me and my listeners and viewers what that mission statement is and explain how and why you came to it?
So my mission statement is currently in a little bit of flux because I'm going to tell you what it is without telling you what it is. I'm not going to recite it because I'm still in the process of deciding which version of it I'm going to recite. But the mission for my company is the mission for me, which is I believe that conversation changes everything. The generative nature of language that we forget. Kids know that language creates new realities. Mom, can I have a cookie? But adults have forgotten that. And so the generative nature of language means that conversations are how we change things. And so I show up, and the company that I'm building shows up to foster those conversations, the one-on-one leadership coaching conversation, the facilitated conversation for a team to understand the source of their own creativity and how they're going to act, the conversations amongst communities, the collaborative conversations between communities that are in disagreement. That's what we're here to do. It's my superpower. It's what I want Bold Whisper to do, is to leverage that beautiful aspect of language to find the new way to be, to generate creative new outcomes. So that's the crux of what I'm here to do, what we're here to do at this company. It's invite people into conversations that change them, change their teams, change their world.
Okay. Great. I appreciate that very much. I think a lot of mission statements are in flux. People are changing the way they look at it and how they come to the, if you will, the marketplace for one place, and how they come to others and what it means to them and to the other people, not only outside the organization, but if you're a fairly good-sized organization, what does it mean to the people inside? Yeah. What is the galvanizing spirit of how people are there working for you and doing what you would like them to do? So it's very interesting, and I do believe in conversation. I think we don't have enough of them. We have a lot of yelling. We have a lot of yelling and screaming, you know.
Broadcasting.
And broadcasting, right.
None of this, no back and forth. Yeah.
Tell me about Ditch the Doom.
Oh, yeah.
What is it all about, and what is it that you see needs to change about how people view their lives and future? So
Ditch the Doom occurred to me one morning when I woke up, because what I had been thinking about for a while is how loud the noise was getting about it's too late, there's nothing we can do. It had so many conversations. I'm not going to watch the news because there's nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to whatever. And a lot of conversations with those people over there would just do whatever, we'd be fine. And I watched a piece of media that startled me in how dark it was and how hopeless it was. And I thought, we're feeding ourselves this constantly. It's in our media, it's in our social media, it's in our conversations with each other. And it's like a song. It's the song that we're singing, and every generation sings this song. Oh, there's nothing we can do. I particularly dislike the phrase, it is what it is. Not because of the original intention, which is an acceptance intention, but because it's used for resignation. What am I going to do? I hate that use of it. And like I said, every generation sings this song, but our generation is screaming it at a very high decibel so that it's drowning out everything. And the sadness is that it's self-fulfilling. If you believe there's no hope, you've decided there's no hope, so why try? So what's the antidote? The antidote is hope. And there's a lot of what people call toxic positivity messaging in our culture. Just think positive. Just thinking positive is not sufficient, and it usually causes you to not really hear what it is. So what I'm calling for is that we do what some group of people in every generation has done, which is shake it off, square your shoulders and say, oh yeah, who says? And get busy. And I think the 3 areas that I'm really focused on as the antidote to doom is courage. You have to have the courage to stand up to the big scary things, which means you have to see them. You and I have been talking about resilience, and we just had the conversation about fear. What do I need? What does my community need to feel strong enough to face the dragon, to face the scary thing? And also the courage to stand up to the people in your community and say, no, we're going to go a different way. As a leader, you have to have that courage to cast a new vision for your team. So all the ways that courage are going to be really required right now. And how do we cultivate and nurture courage? And the second thing is collaboration. And community is what you do for yourself. You build community to support yourself, to make sure you have the courage and the resilience. Collaboration is when you take the step and you collaborate with someone in another group. Bonus points if it's someone you don't like or you barely respect. How are you going to hear from them? I really think a lot of our problems are that we talk about how siloed we are, but we continue to participate in the those people are stupid story. Once you've declared someone stupid, you cannot possibly think that they're going to have anything valuable to deliver, and yet they have a whole life of lived experiences that you might be able to benefit from if you're going to come up with a solution. So how do we start bridging some of these gaps? How do we start really understanding what it is to collaborate? And then the third is my favorite thing, which is creativity. We have to make things that have never existed before. We have to make new things, and we have to be creative in even asking the questions. I love questions, especially that spark good conversation. How creative can you be in asking the question before you even think about a creative solution? What's the actual problem here? What are we actually solving for? Creativity, courage, collaboration are what I'm spending a lot of time talking about. It's bigger than what I do at Bold Whisper. Bold Whisper is definitely a part of one of the answers. I support leaders who are moving in these directions, and I support teams who need to understand how to move into their own creativity and their own courage to do what the leader has envisioned. But it's a bigger umbrella. It involves everybody who's taking positive steps. I have lots of people in my life, you for instance, who are doing really good work. That amplifies the hope song. Anybody who's saying there's a potential solution out there is ditching the doom, and I'm here to support that. It's too easy. We cannot afford the luxury of doom. Doom feels good, but then you don't have to do anything. Can't afford that.
I think one of the pathways that I'm seeing, it's always been there, but one of the pathways that I'm seeing occur now in, for example, space travel like SpaceX, for example, or AI. This idea of rapid prototyping, this notion that, hey, look, we don't have the answer today, but we're going to get the answer.
Yeah.
We're going to find the answer. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to start putting something together and trying it. Yep. And if it doesn't work, we've learned what doesn't work. And you know what? We'll make improvements to it, and we'll try it again. And we're going to keep going until we find our way out of this, until we find a way that works. And I think, for me anyway, from my own observations with people, one of the hampering effects is that people, for whatever reason, don't want to make a mistake.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
They
yeah.
want to be perfect all the time. And somehow, if they make a mistake or are not perfect, their world ends. And it's so sad. It is so sad to say, look, We're all in this together. Let's go try something. Let's see if it works. But I think you're seeing, certainly AI, as I like to say, is shredding, and I mean shredding the notion of the old notions, the traditional notions of leadership, because
Yes.
of the distribution of knowledge and power. I say, for example, when you get a group of 10 or 20 people in a room, be careful if you ask the question, who's the smartest person here? Because it may not be the person who's in charge.
Yeah.
In fact, chances are it's probably not. It may be Jennifer or Joe or Ellen or Bob or whomever who spends 4 or 5 hours a day prompting AI and getting feedback, knowledge that's accelerating their own knowledge within this distributed knowledge network now that really becomes a proactive leadership movement, if you will.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think it's such an interesting dynamic. I feel sorry for people who are not afraid to who don't want to make any mistakes, and they're trapped. They're trapped especially when my conversations in leadership, even the one this morning, about authenticity. Yeah. What's your authentic self say? Well, it says I really need to make some changes. Okay, let's go. So what's the first step? I'd love to get your reflection on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the unfortunate loop is that even before social media, when you were in school, when we were teaching students pre-social media, we would only ever teach them the fully formed hero. You don't meet George Washington when he's 12 and he's trying to figure out his life. You meet him at the end of his life. You meet Steve Jobs after he's invented whatever. And we don't teach struggle. We don't teach mess. There's that very encapsulated story about Edison saying that he had invented 10,000 ways to not make a light bulb. And everybody goes, oh, that's really great. But it's almost like we put that in a little bubble so we wouldn't have to actually look at it. And then social media comes in and it's a reflection of perfection all the time. Even the messiness is perfection. There was a huge trend that just went through social media of influencers admitting to things that they had faked. And it's the whole spectrum of funny to horrifying about the things that they faked. And people are trying to live up to that. So we've been doubling down on this image of perfection. And we've got a tight marketplace and mass layoffs and all of the pressures on people. So they feel like they have to show up perfect. When you were in school, were you ever rewarded for asking a good question? No, you were rewarded for giving the right answer. The teachers defined right answer, which chances are wasn't even the right answer. I can think of several examples where I was taught things that I went on to college and discovered weren't true because the teacher hadn't retooled and didn't know that the learning had changed. So it's the power of our questions. It's the power of our curiosity. It's our willingness to be uncomfortable and messy. It's our willingness to not look perfect. You think about, I don't know why this is popping into my head, but Lucille Ball was a beautiful woman. She had a whole career as a beautiful woman, and she was willing to smear chocolate on her face and fall flat on it, hang out of windows and do all this insane things. She is famous for her comedy because she was courageous enough to be messy. That's the visual right there. She looked foolish a lot of the time, but no one thinks of her as foolish. We got to do the same thing. We have to make room. There's a lot of organizations that say they want innovation and they punish the mess. They don't give it enough time. They don't give it enough funding. They don't give it enough space. They don't give it enough social permission. But if you look at the truly innovative companies and you go and look at the list of things they tried that failed, it's usually much larger than their successes, but their successes were immense. Because to your point, they hit the traction point. They hit the thing. If you're going to sit there and do the perfect painting, you never will. If you're going to sit there and do 150 paintings, one of them will be perfect.
I think if you could go back in history and talk to the great artisans, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, and ask them, you created this perfect thing, they'd probably tell you, no, I didn't. No, that's not perfect.
Yeah. It's not
perfect. It was good for the time, but yeah, and we did our best, but it's really not perfect. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a wonderful lesson to learn there. And I will take the word conversation. I'm going to take your word conversation. I'm going to take it to what I believe is the next level, and that's dialogue. Mm-hmm. The fact that we can not just have a conversation, but where meaning is exchanged.
Yeah.
The greatest motivation force on the planet, meaning, where meaning is exchanged. You know what? Jennifer said something that made me reflect on things I hadn't thought about before. And I need to go work that out in my head. I may have to go off for a while and sit down with a cup of coffee or whatever, or tea, and just think about that. Just take that in and see where that leaves me down the road. This art of reflection, as I like to say.
Yeah,
So,
and it is an art, and we're losing it. One of my favorite moments in coaching is someone will say, "Oh, I got to think about that," and I'll say, "Oh, how are you going to think about that?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Do you think better in warm or cold environments, moving or sitting still, with music, without music, walking your dog, being alone? Like, where do you think?" And you have to go through that. You have to figure out where those reflective moments are truly reflective. There was a finding a few years ago that the most focused sound is that subtle murmur of people's voices in a coffee shop. That's why everybody goes to the coffee shop to work, right? You do. You need time to think. And right now I'm doing some projects around building internal networking groups for organizations so that their leaders can come together and strategically start to brainstorm and start to really understand, oh, you're working on this corner of what we're doing and I'm working, but there's some commonality here. And a lot of the reason that those are so powerful is that whoever brings me in, whether it's HR or the C-suite or whoever's made the decision to do this, is giving permission for strategic thinking. So often they give the voice to it, like, you need to be strategic, but here's 16 fires you have to put out before lunch, because that's
Right.
part of the job. But by signaling, look, we're giving a facilitated space for you to be strategic, to build relationships internally, to understand how to use design cycle thinking to really start solving problems. It's interesting. Like, I've had a lot of people tell me they know they're supposed to be strategic. I'm like, yeah, but you're saying one thing and you're signaling something else. There's no time in their calendar. There's no emphasis on strategic thinking. Put your money where your mouth is. Put your space where it puts space in front of them and an expectation, and look and see what happens. And that's related to what we're saying about creativity. How are you giving people space? How are you signaling that this is truly a priority?
I couldn't agree with you more. I am a big devotee, having designed and created a strategic thinking methodology. I am a great believer in strategic thinking, and the way I contrast that between strategic planning is fairly simple. In strategic planning, you're looking to find answers to questions. Strategic thinking is making sure you're asking yourself the right questions.
Brilliant. I love that.
And that's the problem. And I tell people when I do presentations, the halls of business are lined with the carcasses of companies
Yes.
who never took the time to ask themselves the right questions, to dig deep and just say, wait a minute, what are the real issues we're facing here? And we can go off and strategically plan and throw money at all this other stuff, but the stuff that's going to put us out of business, I think often, I hope the people who used to work for this company will forgive me, but I think often about Sears. If you would have told people Sears was going out of business 30 years ago,
Yeah.
what are you?
They're
What
here.
kind of nut job are you? And the answer is no, they're going to go out of business because they never really sat down and asked themselves the right question. The example I use, if you buy an old house, and one built in the 20s and 30s, where they didn't have drywall, they had plaster walls. And you got to go into those houses. And what's the first thing you do? You look at the walls and go, look at all this wallpaper. Look at all this paint. You got to strip everything back. You got to take it all back to where there's nothing on the wall if you truly want to renew it, if you truly want to rebuild it into something beautiful again. And you just can't paint over that stuff. It's not going to work. So in many ways, strategic thinking to me is let's get the right questions on the table. And then once we have the questions, we can prioritize the question. We can put the questions into strategic planning and then allocate the resources to fix the problem. So I'm with you
Yeah,
150%.
I've had a lot of experience. I use the design cycle thinking kind of model. And the first, after the impetus or the provocation, like there's a challenge we need to rise to, or there's an opportunity. The next phase is that programming phase, that perceive phase. And then you get to brainstorm. And everybody wants to jump straight to brainstorming. And when I stop them and I say, no, what are the actual needs? What are our resources? What are the potential obstacles? What are we solving for? What does done look like? Not in terms of the actual solution, because we don't know yet, but how will we know we're done? And I've had experiences where they want to go on to brainstorming. And when we stay in that phase, we find out they've crafted a question using words, but they're asking two different questions using those words. They haven't realized, and they were going to brainstorm and they were going to be throwing it at each other instead of at the problem. It's so common. And I would argue Sears never asked what their customers needed. They never did.
And
They're going to need what we've been telling them they needed since we started the catalogs. And that's the sad thing too about Sears. The catalog was a huge innovation and they owned it. But I have a friend who they renovated their house, this family house on their family property in North Carolina, and the walls were stuffed with Sears catalog paper. That was the insulation. It was everywhere. You could buy whole houses from Sears. Innovation, and they stopped asking the questions. People buy their own hype, and they stop asking good questions. I absolutely agree, and they rush. We want the solution. I get the rush. Like, we want to go and have the creative ideas and come up with something, and our boss is breathing down our neck and whatever, but are you even solving for the right thing?
No, I absolutely agree. And I think here's the funny part about it. If you take a step back and look at it, what Sears created in the catalog was the ability to communicate directly with the consumer. And they never followed that line into the computer world. They never said, how will we communicate with our consumers with this burgeoning computer-driven world we're going to live in? It seems that may be one of the reasons. At least that's my perspective.
Well, and we have a model. We're going to stick with our model. Does your model, to your point about AI, we have a lot of rapid change happening. The future shock is now, right? We have so much rapid change happening, and it's no wonder that people are singing the doom song, because it's smacking them around.
Right.
But again, what do you answer? So for me, my question for AI is, how can we utilize this amazing technology to make more space for us to be human, not less? Right. And right now, that's not the question everybody's asking. It's how can we replace XYZ? Do you remember those Kitchen of the Future, World of the Future videos from like the movies, from like the little short that they'd show or whatever? And they were always more leisure time, more time with your family, more time for community work, whatever. And somehow the 20th century just got more and more frenetic, and there was less time for family and less time for all the promise. This is the full flower of that promise. Are we going to use it that way? Are we asking the right questions? Because it's doing a lot of damage already. It's eliminating whole categories of work. It's eliminating whole categories of prestige, because when the job is no longer necessary, then the person's no longer necessary. And some of these jobs, it's not just attacking the lower jobs. It's attacking jobs with which we associate a lot of prestige. So who is on top? Who is the old promise about get a college degree, get the house, the dog, and the 4 kids, whatever? It's not applicable anymore.
Yeah.
For so many reasons. So how are we as individuals, how are we as organizations keeping up with this rapid change that has the potential to do a lot of harm and hurt a lot of people, but also any tool is a tool, has the potential to deliver space for us to feed everybody on the planet, deliver space for us to have a better customer service experience, please. Can we get to that place? Yeah, we have choices to make, and we're not even clear about those choices right now.
Oh, no, I absolutely agree. I think it's to be determined. I'm spending a good deal of time on the ethical side of the AI house. Mm-hmm. And right now, the hope is that the companies who are developing these AI systems, ChatGPT, Google, they've got folks running alongside of this, if you will, development continuously looking at the ethical side, explainable, what they call explainable AI and transparency.
Yeah.
But the rapid development of it and people trying to get to the marketplace so quickly, I think, is leaving the ethical side of AI a bit in the tracks because the development is just, it's hyper development.
And it's
it's very hard to keep up with it.
It's global. So
And
we
it's
may
global.
set ethical standards here, but will the world participate? China's AI is whatever. I saw this isn't AI necessarily, but the belt of countries around the equator that have traditionally had lower economic viability they are right at the tipping point for surpassing the far north and the far south in sustainable energy, data, like all the stuff we say we're doing. They didn't have anything stopping them. They don't have all the tech debt that we have. They don't have all of the belief in who we are that keeps us from doing what we need to do, to your point earlier. Oh, but we don't do that. They're doing it. And the whole planet could shift. It is going to shift.
It is going to shift.
There's countries you don't have top of mind. They're not household names that could end up being major superpowers if India made a huge commitment to their tech development, and look at what it's done for them, for their economy.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do? What's the right question? And it's such an important moment for knowing how to ask good questions.
It's like watching race cars go around a track and no one knows who's going to finish, who's going to crash and burn, and who's going to finish.
And no one knows who's going to use a helicopter to drop a race car in the beginning of the race.
That's right. Who's going to? That's right. Who's going to interrupt the whole process? Listen, I have a long question I want to ask you.
Okay.
Okay, and then it has to do with hope. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's going to take a few seconds or maybe a minute or so, and then we'll see where this takes us. Okay, maybe a bit redundant, but we'll see. So Jennifer, I've had the honor and privilege of interviewing several guests who have had difficult lives and upbringings. Two were high flyers in their industry who got involved with drugs, went to jail, and came out saved, to use their terms, and today are very successful entrepreneurs. Another is a black man whose parents were both incarcerated. Father got involved with drugs and died when he was 13. His mother then worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. Today, he is an incredibly successful digital marketing entrepreneur. And another who was evacuated by his parents from his home country in Iran to Canada at the time of the Shah's downfall, and today is a very successful leadership coach. At no time during our podcast interviews did I ever get the impression that they saw themselves as victims. They had hope, no matter their current situation, and have achieved in the end and are continuing to achieve. How can this be? What is it that you think these folks possessed or had that others seemed to be missing?
I met a man a couple of years ago who was one of what they call the Sudanese lost boys, the refugee boys that had those horrible experiences. And he had horrible experiences. He was speaking about that, but he had started a nonprofit to help people in the country he had been able to leave. And I went to him afterwards and I said, "You are the second person from Sudan that I've met who did the same thing. Why didn't you just wash your hands of it? Why didn't you walk away?" And he said, "If you've crossed a river full of crocodiles and you know where the crocodiles are and you turn around and somebody else is entering the river, you stand on the banks and go left, right, and you make sure they avoid the crocodiles." I say that because I think that what may be the answer is a frame of service. A frame of service that when we become self-focused, we can lose hope so quickly because there's so little in here. Even though we are amazing and every one of us is a miracle, and I really believe that, when we are cut off, we're only as big as that. But as soon as we're tapped into everything else and everybody else, not in a selfless way, not in a way that we evaporate, but in a way that we understand that we have an offer to make, Richard Branson famously suffers from very serious shyness because of his learning disabilities when he was a kid. And he, in a testimony to how much his mother meant to him, he said that she taught him that you can be as shy as you want to be, but you can't afford to be shy, because in the room, your job is to make sure other people are comfortable. And I always thought that was genius. It's other people, right? And we have had a very damaging experience with the pandemic, with the things that have been happening. I believe that a lot of what happened was necessary. It saved lives, but it broke other things. And those other things we need to invest ourselves in rebuilding. I love being out. I love networking. And I still struggle to get out sometimes. It's easier to be at home. I learned to be at home. If I'm feeling that way, imagine how my introvert friends are feeling. How do we build more opportunities for people to connect to purpose, not just to output? How do we build more opportunities for them to connect with other people, the collaboration piece? I'll bet you if you went back and asked them and said, why did you do what you did? Because I needed to make my mother's sacrifice mean even more. I was grateful, right? Or I just saw a need and I filled it. Or I knew what had happened in my country and I didn't want that to happen somewhere else. It's the frame of service, which comes from this place of gratitude and this place of connection. That's my guess.
I think I think also there, at some level, there's a recognition that service as part of it, that people are on, as Joseph Campbell would say, the hero's journey. Campbell was once asked the difference between celebrity and a hero.
Oh.
And his answer was, the celebrity acts for self. The hero acts to redeem society. And I thought to myself, that really puts it in the heart of what people are trying to do, to try to make change. In the crazy world we live in, whether post-pandemic, the development of AI, I had an MCC coach on by the name of Ed Temple from Canada. And he said, I think, and he has a coaching AI buddy named Enzo that he uses to, in fact, create pathways for him or answer questions that he's struggling with or different things like that. And I said to him, where's this take the coaching world? And he said to me, this is the way I see it. 75 or 80% of the mundane things or repetitive things that we do probably will be handled by AI. He said, which tells me that the 20% reserved for us becomes even more important.
Okay.
And I thought that was a really wonderful statement. Jensen Huang, who, is the creator, is the president CEO of NVIDIA, who's building the chips for the AI systems, once said, not too long ago, that don't worry about losing your job to AI. Worry about losing your job to someone who understands
Who
AI.
understands AI, yeah.
Who's working with AI.
There is that Twilight Zone episode where the guy is the last one, it might have been Outer Limits, where he's the last one turning off the machine, or turning off the lights because the machine has taken over. If we knew in 63 this was coming, I agree. And I think when you're that level of coach, when you're really devoted to, I'm a PCC, I'm working towards my MCC status, and I've been talking to my MCC colleagues about what's different when you get there. And I live in the intersection between science and magic. I always have. MCC is on the magical end. That level of coaching where you're bringing limbic resonance and you're in the room with somebody, even if you're doing it virtually. And what can you bring from your humanity that touches their humanity? Even if AI can approximate that, we still need that. Our system needs that. Our transformation requires that. It's the people-to-people piece. Will it eliminate? A lot of people call themselves coaches, and they're really just advice givers, and that's a very different process. I've never loved the word coach. We stole it from another place. It already had a meaning. I don't think it adequately describes what we do, and there's lots of people who describe what they do as coaching, and it's not the same as what I've been trained to do, what I do. And it's a shortfall in the word that we're using, I think. But that potential for human transformation, for the aha moment when the client goes, oh, and makes that noise. I live for that noise because they see something they didn't see before, and they're seeing it not just with their brain, but with their nerve endings, and everything's changing. So to his point, yeah, why be threatened by something that's already happening? Figure out your path.
Right. How am I going to get there?
Yeah.
Right.
Then if that's not something I'm going to do anymore, then what's the important thing I could be doing? It's back to asking the right questions.
Yeah.
Then what is the value of being alive? And I firmly believe, my driver is, I believe that every person on this planet is amazing. And that if everyone understood their true value and then lived into it, we would be an unstoppable species. And there's so much unnecessary suffering and so much drama and silliness and stupidity and whatever that's keeping us from that. And that's why I do what I do, because I get to sit with people and receive their whole person, receive all their amazingness, and figure out what's standing in their way and move it out of the way. So even if it's them, move it out of the way.
Yeah, that's right.
Move yourself out of the way.
Get out of the way.
What's possible when I wrote an essay one time about the idea of being limitless, that we are not limitless. We're finite. We're only going to be here a certain amount of time. We can't lift tractor trailers with our teeth, whatever. But most of us live so far from our edges that we might as well be limitless. And even people who get to an edge, an Olympic athlete who actually knows the full limitation of their musculature, they've only hit one of their edges. They haven't hit all of them. Nobody ever hits all their edges. So we are functionally limitless. Where else can you move? Where else can you push? Where else can you grow into? It's a constant thing.
Yeah. I agree. I think I have to make this one caveat, though, and that is I do believe that there is evil in the world. Mm-hmm. I do believe that there is evil in the world, and people have to be cautious, careful. We talked about it. What sinister kind of nefarious things will some people use AI on doing, that kind of stuff. But other than in keeping an eye on that, keeping yourself safe, those kinds of things. But other than that, we can do more. People can do more and do better. And my hope is, even in my work, I want people, my part of my mission statement says, I want people to live a more productive, prosperous, and meaningful life. And I do that through my leadership practices and those kinds of things. And you just hope for the best. You do what you can do. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. You do what you can do. And so let me ask you my last question. And that is, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it at any issue or problem, it's my world famous question, by the way. I've asked from people all over the world. Yeah. What would it be and why did you choose that?
In light of what we just said, I believe there's evil. I believe there's danger. I believe you can't be uncautious. I think I'm making up a word, but that's okay. It fits.
It is now.
It is now. It's word. It's on tape. It's on recording. Somebody said it. If those people who are committing evil acts understood their value, they wouldn't have to. They wouldn't be stuck in whatever's got them stuck in taking those horrific actions. So yeah, if I could wave a magic wand, it would be that people would connect to what they're created to be, understand their true value, understand their true limitations, live in complete harmony with both of those things, not try to be things they aren't, and cultivate what they are. If the whole world lived that way, imagine.
I know. You find yourself wanting that, and there's some that will do it, I think. Some will turn.
Yeah.
And many will not. So you have to do what you can do with what you have, I think, and hope for the best in many respects. It's what you can do.
I'm chuckling.
Anyway,
you said magic wand.
That's right.
We're talking about the magical version. I have
it's
no
a magical version.
It's not being.
Oh, you said you live on the edge of magic. I couldn't help myself.
Science, yeah, the science says the probability is not there, but the magic says try for it anyway.
Well, let's hope there's enough dust coming from the magic wand that makes some changes. So we'll see. But listen, Jennifer, thank you so very much for being here today on the podcast. I appreciate it very much. I wish you all the success in the world.
Thank you.
The best come to you and your family. And again, thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you.